You have to flatten your finger across two strings, that's flat, and then these two have to be rounded. And especially when you're... Hello, this is John with My First Ukulele, and today I'm going to be talking to you about why do my hands hurt when I play the ukulele? So I remember back when I picked up stringed instruments for the first time, probably about 15 or 20 years ago, and I was in college. I always wanted to learn how to play guitar first, and so I picked up my first guitar, which is an electric. I remember picking it up, and the tension wasn't very high in the strings, but they were metal, and they were really thin, and man, it felt like I was playing on chicken wire or something, and so it was making my fingers a little bit agitated, and I got a lot of blisters and stuff like that. So I would especially say on guitar, that's a pretty normal thing to get, especially if your first instrument is an acoustic guitar, unless it's a really short scale instrument. Now, let's fast forward to now, and just a few years ago, I picked up the ukulele. It is very similar to guitar in the way that it's tuned, and the smaller the ukulele that you have, if you have a soprano ukulele, it's going to give you the least amount of tension whenever you're squeezing the hand. So because the length of the neck is a lot shorter and there's a lot less string tension that's going to happen, it's not having to stretch itself as long as a tenor ukulele like this one. And so that really, really helps whenever you go to practice a lot. So if you know you have a lot of practicing to do, and it doesn't matter how big the neck is, a soprano is a really great instrument to start with for your fingers, so they won't get as tense and tight and just tough to play on. Now, if you have a lot of intricate work to do on a ukulele, then I recommend picking up a concert or especially a tenor ukulele, and that will really, really help you get in there and be able to make complex chords without running your fingers into each other. Now, that being said, because it's a longer instrument, as I was saying, it's going to have more string tension to it, and that's going to make your hands a little bit tired, especially if you have a lot of bar chords. For instance, like the B flat chord that we have. At first, people aren't used to gripping the chord that way, right? So you have to flatten your finger across two strings, that's flat, and then these two have to be rounded. And especially when you're learning new things, people tend to over grip things just to make sure that they're getting a sound correctly, right? So if maybe you're grabbing the B flat for the first time, it would sound a little bit weak, or you might get some buzzes if your finger's in the wrong position. I'm going to try to make a buzz here. You hear the buzzes? So if you're not right next to the frets, you're having to overcompensate and squeeze even harder. So definitely I would start with a smaller ukulele first until you're confident in making those sounds without buzzes or without over squeezing. One really good rule is to make sure that you only squeeze as much as you need to in order to make the sound, right? So check in every once in a while. Let's say you're making an F chord, right? I'm squeezing an F chord. Do I have room to be a little bit less squeezy? Not much, okay. But I did relax just a slight bit, and that would really help me to keep playing without my hand getting worn out. Another thing that beginner ukuleles have trouble with is placement of fingers, especially the thumb on the back of the neck. I don't feel like people really understand how that works. So if you are going to grab the ukulele maybe the first time, most people are used to, at least my kids that I have that I teach, they play baseball, and they grab the baseball bat as if they're making a fist, right? And that way when people go to play ukulele or guitar, they're kind of used to making a fist. So they might grab the ukulele like this, and their thumb is all the way back here. And so I have to say, wait. I want you to pinch the neck of the ukulele in a way that, you're grabbing it almost in the same place on the front and the back of the neck, right? So if we're making a C chord, get it close to where your finger is on the front, right? You don't want to have your thumb spread out all the way across the back, or especially too far over. There are times that you could do that for special effects or certain chords like that, but for the most part, you just want to have it in near the same area that your fingers are going to be in. That should help you a lot, right? All right, and some other things that you can do to make the hand hurt a little bit less is you could, let's say you only had a tenor ukulele, you could practice in a lower key, right? So if you're used to tuning your ukulele G, C, E, A, if you started by tuning down to an F sharp or an F first and then tuning the ukulele that way, then that would be less tension for your hands as well. Right, and so you could practice a little bit longer. It wouldn't sound like you'd be in the same key, but it would allow you to play the string a little bit longer without having to squeeze as much because there would be less tension in the strings, right? So another thing that you can think about is the gauge of the strings that you're using. If you see ukulele strings labeled as light, or you just generally know that they're not going to be very heavy gauge, those are going to be a little bit easier to play. However, you are going to lose a little bit of tone when you play. You won't get as much sound out of the instrument. So that is one thing to consider. Also, the smaller gauge strings might feel a little bit more like chicken wire as you play more and more with those, but it should be less string tension for you to push down. This Enya ukulele that I've put all kinds of stickers all over, these come with Diodario Platinum strings. And at first, when I got this one, I was like, wow, there's a lot of string tension on these strings. And I've come to really like these, actually. I have not done a string change on these since I've gotten this instrument last year. But I have been using a lot of other instruments as well. So that's something you kind of get used to more and more as you go. Another thing that'll get you used to string tension is picking up a guitar, especially an acoustic guitar, which I feel most of the time has a little bit more string tension because it requires it to have more string tension in order to make a sound on the instrument, right? We have steel strings and maybe and a little bit of copper sometimes. And in order to make enough sound to come out, we have to have a certain amount of tension. Whereas on an electric guitar, you don't quite have to have as much tension on a shorter scale instrument, especially because you've got pickups that are going to be picking up the sound of what you're doing. So anyway, just some food for thought today, and I hope you guys are enjoying the My First Ukulele website. I think it's really great. I send all my students there to check out information, especially if they're beginners. If you like My First Ukulele channel, hit like and subscribe to their channel below, where you can catch many more great topics from My First Ukulele. Well, I've been John, and hopefully I give you some good tips today on how to lessen the tension in your hand when you play, or why does my hand hurt when I play the ukulele. So hope to see you at the next video. Bye-bye.